Welcome to the Warbird Mistress. This is London calling. Good evening. Today is Sunday, the 18th of August, 1940, and these are the events of the day. As any Briton could tell you, it was certainly an intense day, and it began last night with mine-laying activities in the North Sea, Channel, and Irish Sea, as well as raids in Bristol, South Wales, and East Anglia, by whatever bombers were not committed to the endless waves of bombers we face this afternoon. Goering's target is still our fighter command's ability to function, and beginning at noon, our home chain stations caught the party crashers gathering like so many hooligans over the French coast. Our early warning systems and observers counted scores of bombers headed in across the Dover Straits and heading towards fighter command stations between the Dover coast and London, and by 13:30 hours they were overhead. Kenneth was hit by 50 Do-17s at high altitude and another 9 bombers approaching a treetop height. The 3 squadrons in the sector were assigned to each incoming strike, with the high-altitude bombers were to be met by No. 64 Squadron, while Treble 1 would meet the low-level bombers, and No. 615 was sent to assist with a wave of bombers heading for Hawkins. The high-altitude bombers suffered heavy losses from No. 64 Squadron, who tore into them and joined with the rediverted 615 Squadron fighters. While the 111 couldn't intercept the dangerously low-flying Dorniers that were by now dodging between buildings in natural cover, the new parachute and cable anti-aircraft mechanism caught the Hun off guard just as Archie opened up now that they were over the airfield and in clear sight of our gunners. Of the 9 aircraft approaching at low level, only 2 made it back to France safely. 2 were sent careening into the ground, 5 limped back only as far as the Channel, and 3 barely made it to France where they crash-landed. Of the 2 that made it back, only 1 even had a pilot, the other was flown back by the flight engineer. It was a deadly gamble that cost Jerry dearly. Unfortunately, the damage had been done. With over 100 bombs falling on Kenneth Aerodrome and the nearby buildings, 4 Hurricanes, a Blenheim, 2 Manchesters, and a Proctor were destroyed, 6 other aircraft were damaged. 10 hangars were made ruins, while many of the camp buildings were demolished completely. Operations room communications were cut. 9 people, including one of the medical officers, were killed in the strike, and 10 injured. Unfortunately, when fire brigades went to answer the call, their equipment managed to block the roads leading to the airfield, thereby preventing further firefighting activities. We are currently moving operations into a nearby shop, and thanks to the efforts of the post office, we can expect to be operational within 3 days. No. 615 Squadron was redirected to Croydon, and No. 64 to Red Hill. Croydon itself was hurt, with 19 bombs falling on her, and another few hit West Mailing. The same high-low attack was then executed on Biggin Hill this afternoon. However, with U-88s at high level and Do-17s lower down, both from KG-76, there was very poor coordination, and the high-level strike did not take off for some time. The low-level Do-17s were met by a fully prepared airfield defense system and the scrambled fighters of 610 and 32 squadrons. Just as the low-level bombers were finishing up, the high-level raid added in its belly of bombs, although KG-76 did take losses, with 4 U-88s and 6 Do-17s being downed. Not to be left alone, Luftflotte 3 joined in the fight this afternoon, their strikes concentrating on the airfields and home chain stations in the Hampshire and West Sussex area. The Junkers 88 was used as a dive bomber today at 14:30 hours, when Gosport, still being cleaned up from the raid on the 16th, was struck by 21 of the twin-engine bombers, although no casualties ensued. At Thorney Island, 25 Stukas and their 109 escorts managed to destroy 2 hangars and 1 aircraft and damage another. Fleet Air Arm took their share of the hits today when their station at Ford in Sussex was heavily bombed. They lost workshops, a hangar, and punctured fuel stores were set ablaze. Luckily, the only chain home station that was hit was Poling. Although 90 bombs were dropped, many of them delayed action to prevent rescue crews and maintenance crews from doing their job, it was quickly made up for by the installation of a mobile unit. And finally, in the last development of the day, Luftflotte 2 approached the Thames estuary and attacked Croydon by that route. A dozen Bf-109s hit Manston at ground level and destroying 2 Spitfires on the ground. They killed 1 of our airmen and injured 15 others in this Freie Jagd. With Luftflotte 2's attack, this made Essex another scene of intense air-to-air combat. Losses today were dreary for Jerry. 67 aircraft were lost and 97 Luftwaffe airmen and pilots failed to return to base. For our side, we lost 10 airmen in air combat and 33 aircraft. Number 17 Squadron's Pilot Officer Neville David Solomon of Kings Norton, Leicestershire, was killed today when shot down by a Bf-109 off Dover. Solomon had learned to fly after joining the Volunteer Reserve in September of '38, while he worked as an assistant manager at Marks & Spencer. Called up when Poland broke out with a serious case of the Germans, he completed training on 27 May this year. Originally posted to 29 Squadron at Digby flying Blenheims, he was posted to number 17 Squadron and promptly sent back to 602U to convert to Hurricanes. He returned to 17 Squadron on the 10th of this month, and in today's actions over Dover he was seen to crash into the sea while flying Hurricane L-1921. Officially missing at first, he was quickly presumed dead. The 26-year-old was a Hurricane fighter pilot for 8 days, and he is to be buried in the French-Flemish town of Pitem, or Pian-le-Guin, near the Belgian border between Saint-Aglevel and Guin. Flying officer of the Volunteer Reserve, Porucznik Franciszek Gruszka of Bielka Królewska in the Kresy near Lvov was killed today while flying Spitfire R-6713 with number 65 Squadron. The son of a well-to-do farmer, he was well educated and began his military career in 1931, graduating from the Air Force Academy in Dublin in 1934. He served as an instructor in 3rd Division, 1st Air Regiment, based near Lvov, and in defensive war he shot down a Heinkel 111 before making his way to Romania, Yugoslavia, Italy, and Paris, choosing to go ahead to England rather than join Polish forces in France. He was assigned to number 65 Squadron on the 7th of this month, and today he was last seen between Canterbury and Manston in pursuit of a Bf-109 during a mission to intercept German bomber formations. He is to be listed as missing in action until the spring of 1975, when he will be found almost perfectly preserved in the cockpit of his Spitfire in the wetlands near Stodmarsh outside Canterbury. He will be buried with full honours at Northwood, Middlesex on the 17th of July of that year, 34 years and 11 months to the day from when he was shot down. Acting Flight Lieutenant Richard Hugh Antony Lee of No. 85 Squadron has been listed as missing. A London native, he was graduated from RAF College Cranwell in July 1937 and joined No. 85 Squadron on 1st of June of that year. During the Phoney War and French campaign, he was stationed in France, shooting down the squadron's first kill, a Heinkel 111 on 21st November 1939 in a patrol over Boulogne. Gazetted the DFC on 8 March 1940 before the invasion of France, he went on to down a Henschel 126, share a U-86, and damage a U-88 on the 10th, a day before he ended up in a dogfight when he downed 2 Germans, but was shot down by flak on his way to base. Changing into civilian clothes he found and evading capture, he made it back to his squadron and was evacuated to Debden with them on 22nd May. Temporarily with No. 56 Squadron, he was shot down again over the border off Dunkirk. He was gazetted on 31st May 1940 with the DSO, awarded by the hand of the King himself in one ceremony together with the DFC. Back home with 85 Squadron this month, he continued flying patrols until today. Chasing an enemy formation 30 miles off the coast, he did not return from his North Sea endeavor. He had at least 9 kills to his credit. Also among the missing is Pilot Officer John Basil Ramsay of Lilliput, Dorset. Born an Indian, returning with his parents to Britain as a child, he joined the RAF on a short service commission in July of '38 after having completed Bishop Stratford College. He fought in France from 23rd January of this year until withdrawal to Hendon on 29 May. Converting to fighters, he joined No. 151 Squadron on 29 July. Today he engaged Germans over Chelmsford while aboard Hurricane R-4181 and failed to return to base. He is listed among the missing and will remain so until 1983 when his Hurricane will be found at Deal Hall Farm in Hollowell Point, Essex. He will be found still strapped into his cockpit and will be buried with full honours at Brookwood Military Cemetery on 25th October 1983. Lost today is Flight Lieutenant Stanley Dudley Pierce Connors of Darjeeling, Bengal Presidency, India, a member of the RAF since March 1936 when he was commissioned into the Special Reserve during the last months of that organization before it converted to be the Auxiliary Air Force. He gained a short service commission in the RAF on December 1937 and joined the Treble One in June 1938. On 18 May of this year, the squadron began patrols over France, and during the French campaign he destroyed 2 U-88s, 3 Heinkel 111s, and 1 Bf-109 with the second probable. A week later he was made acting flight lieutenant and commander of B-Flight. He was also gazetted the DFC on 31st May 1940. In June he had 1 unconfirmed Heinkel 111 plus 2 Bf-109s, 1 damaged 109, and a shared probable U-88. On the 11th of this month he destroyed a U-88 and a Bf-110, and on the 15th he damaged 1 more of each. He downed a pair of DO-17s, one on the 16th and another today. However, in this last engagement, he was shot down by our own anti-aircraft while engaging the DO-17s bombing Kenley. He will posthumously be gazetted a bar to the DFC on 6 September, in which he is named to have 12 kills to his credit. He will be buried at North Berwick Cemetery. Number 501 Squadron lost Pilot Officer John Wellburn Bland of Cowan, Wiltshire, son of the Reverend Thomas Bland of St. Matthew's, Chatham Park, Bristol. A chartered accountant who read at Bristol University, he joined 501 Squadron Auxiliary Air Force and was commissioned in June of 1939. With the outbreak of war, he traded in accountancy for lion taming when called up and sent to number 601 Squadron at Tangmere, flying his first operational sortie on 22nd of May. He had 2.5 kills to his credit, a Bf-109 from 7 June, a shared DO-17 on 11 July, and a Stuka on 29 July. Today he was shot down by a Bf-109, and his Hurricane P-3208 crashed at Calcott Hill, Surrey, Kent. Flight Lieutenant George Edward Bow Stoney of Dublin was shot down by a Bf-109 while flying Hurricane P-2549 with number 501 Squadron. Descended from the Stoneys of Amel Castle in Cloughjordan, County Tipperary, his father had served with the Canadian Expeditionary Force and then followed them back to Canada. Flight Lieutenant Stoney returned to the UK after growing up in Canada and joined the RAF on a short service commission in August 29, serving as a flying instructor with 1 Flight Training School and 502 Special Reserve Squadron before 2 years with No. 4 Army Cooperation Squadron and moving into the reserves. At the outbreak of war, he was posted to teach Flight Training School Cranwell before joining 501 as Flight Commander on 28 July. He shot down 2 Stukas, one on the 29th and another on the 11th of this month. Today he was shot down by Hauptmann Fozo of 2 JG-51. Number 601 Squadron lost Sgt Pilot Leonard Northwood Guy today. An Axbridge native and employee of Lloyd's Bank, he joined the Volunteer Reserve in August of 39, training and converting to Hurricanes before being posted to number 601 in July. On the 11th of that month, he damaged 1 Stuka and a second was a probable kill. This month he had 2 probable Heinkel 111s, 1 damaged 111 on the 11th, a destroyed Bf-110, another shared kill, and a third 110 damage on the 13th, a shared U-88 on the 15th, and just 2 days ago he downed another pair of Stukas. The ace was last seen today engaging Germans before being shot down by a 109 and crashing into the waters off Sussex. Also of 601 Squadron, Sgt Redvers Percival Hawkins of the Volunteer Reserve, a native of Bristol, was shot down off the Sussex coast. A member of 601 Squadron since finishing training on 21st May, he had to his credit a shared DO-17, a probable Heinkel 111, a probable Bf-110, a U-88 confirmed kill, a probable U-88, a damaged U-88, and 2 damaged Bf-110s. Today he was shot down in the engagements off Sussex, his Hurricane crashing near Summer Lane, nigh Timber, Pagham. He is to be buried at St. Peter's, Filton, Gloucestershire. Sergeant Pilot Peter Kenneth Wally of Barnes, London, lately of Croydon, was killed today when shot down over Sevenoaks, Kent. Wally, an apprentice toolmaker, joined the Auxiliary Air Force in March of 38 as an aircraft and an air gunner. He was selected for pilot training at the outbreak of war. He finished his training on 11 July and rejoined 615 Squadron on the 6th of this month. In the last 12 days he damaged a DO-17 and had a shared probable Heinkel 111. Today he was engaging JG-3's Bf-109s when he was shot down and killed, crashing in Morden Park, after successfully gliding his Hurricane, P-2768, some distance to avoid crashing in a residential area, despite his fatally serious injuries. Thank you for tuning in to the Warbird Mistress. This is London Calling, a day-by-day detail of the Battle of Britain, and I hope that you subscribe, watch the playlist for new editions, and do check out other offerings on this channel. Subscriptions through Patreon and YouTube are more than welcome to keep this channel going. Thank you and take care.